Hi, my name is Rebecca Townsend, and I'm a master's student studying music therapy at the University of Kansas. I'm going to be talking today about the topic of my master's thesis, which is currently underway, entitled Feasibility of Integrating the Self-Determined Learning Model of Instruction in Music Therapy Supervision. When I came to graduate school, I was immersed for the first time in the world of supervision. So I was learning about all these various models of supervision, including psychotherapy-based models, social role models, and developmental models, and then kind of learning on the job, working to integrate and apply them to meet the needs of my supervisees. So the graphic in the upper left is something I created as part of my coursework to help me as a new supervisor to kind of visualize and track my way through the creation of these unique ways to integrate these models in consideration of supervisor orientation, supervisee need, and supervisor role. And around the same time I was digging into these supervision models, I was introduced to the concept of self-determination. So causal agency theory is a theory describing how one comes to be self-determined in their life and defines self-determination as a dispositional characteristic manifested as acting as the causal agent in one's life. So the person themselves is the one to make or cause things to happen in their lives by engaging in self-determined actions of decide, act, and believe. And each of these self-determined actions is associated with a number of attitudes, abilities, and skills that can be developed and supported. So the self-determination literature is really clear that, experts in self-determination consistently advocate for everyone to receive support to become more self-determined, not just people with disabilities and not just students in kindergarten through 12th grade, even though that's where the majority of the research is centered. So I was really excited about self-determination, learning about all of these things, and I began connecting my new interests in supervision and my new interests in self-determination and kind of asking what the impacts of promoting self-determination in music therapy students could be. So there exists an evidence-based intervention designed to promote self-determination called the Self-Determined Learning Model of Instruction, or the SDLMI. And it presents a structured way of setting and working towards personally relevant goals. And it consists of a series of 12 student questions divided into 3 phases to answer 3 broader questions. So in phase 1, students answer 4 student questions to solve the overall problem of what is my goal. And then in phase 2, there are 4 more student questions to help them solve the overall problem of what is my plan. And then they go and implement that plan, work towards that goal, come back to phase 3 to answer 4 more student questions and solve the overall problem of what have I learned. So then the SDLMI is designed to be an iterative process. The idea is to go back to phase 1 after phase 3 is complete, and then practice that cycle of self-regulated problem solving over and over and over, because that is what truly enables the development of self-determination. So a couple more keynotes about how this model is set up. The SDLMI is a model of instruction, not a curriculum, so it can be overlaid over any content area. And because it's applicable in so many contexts, it can be really helpful to define slightly narrower areas within which students can set their goals in phase 1, so that they still have the opportunity for autonomy while still accomplishing those objectives related to instruction in any given context. So the goal buckets I selected as related to music therapy clinical development are represented at the top of this central box here on the poster. Next, the student questions I mentioned are really the main structure of the model, but the other core components include the teacher objectives and educational supports. So teachers implement those educational supports to work to meet those teacher objectives. And when they meet the teacher objectives, that means the teacher has enabled the student to effectively answer those questions. And finally, the teacher and the student have really distinct defined roles in this process from the outset. So it is clear that the student is directing their own learning. And that's really the point of the SDLMI, to facilitate a shift from teacher-directed learning to student-directed learning. So as I was becoming more and more familiar with this model and buying into the importance of self-determination, I realized that these models of supervision I was becoming immersed in are all ways that the supervisor directs the learning and the clinical development of the supervisee. And in that, all of these things converged for me, and this feasibility study really took shape. So my main question being, is it feasible to use the SDLMI in the context of music therapy clinical practicum? And of course, I also wanted to look at the preliminary impact on student music therapists' overall self-determination, on their levels of goal attainment, and on their perceptions of their clinical development. So to answer these questions, to see if it's even possible that this could be a bigger study someday, I have both quantitative and qualitative measures. So first is the self-determination inventory, which is an online survey that measures global self-determination and gives a breakdown of those three self-determined actions of decide, act, and believe. And participants take this survey pre and post intervention so that we can compare the changes that occur. And this is an open access survey, so feel free to visit that QR link and take the SDI yourself. The second quantitative measure is goal attainment scaling, and participants articulate 5 different levels of goal attainment based on that goal they set in phase 1. And then post-intervention, they come back to this scaling and they indicate what level they actually attained using that -2 to +2 scale. And then finally, I'll be conducting interviews with participants post-intervention to gather qualitative data about their perceptions of feasibility and usefulness of the SDLMI in the practicum context. So currently, my 7 participants have been through phase 1 and phase 2. They're implementing their plans and completing reflections on how it's going, but I won't have the majority of my data for a few weeks yet. So I believe that through explicit instruction and opportunities to take ownership of their clinical development, student music therapists can be more effective at autonomously and spontaneously targeting specific areas of growth. And I think this could really enhance their motivation to really engage in their practicum experience. I also think that the way supervision is conducted could be transformed in a really positive direction by more deliberately shifting the responsibility of ensuring clinical growth away from the supervisor and onto the students themselves. So this study provides a novel addition to the self-determination literature and the supervision literature, and is really laying the groundwork for my line of research as I head into my PhD. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and have a great conference.